You're watching The Night Files. If you love horror, hit that subscribe button. Please help me reach 1K. Your support means the world. It started with a smell. Rotten meat, thick in the air, even though we were 40 miles from the nearest road. My name is Evan, and this story is not just mine. It belongs to me, to my friend Noah, and to my cousin Derek, who did not make it out of those woods. We went backpacking into the mountains of northern New Mexico, along the border of the Navajo Nation. We were careful, brought supplies, maps, and even a satellite beacon in case something went wrong. Nothing prepared us for what was waiting out there. On the second day of hiking, we left the main trail. We were chasing an old legend Derek had read about online, something about ancient burial sites hidden deep in the forest. He was always into weird stuff. UFOs, haunted places, missing 411. The works. I didn't think much of it. The place was beautiful. Towering pines, rolling hills. Quiet. Too quiet. I remember the first night clearly. The fire crackled. We were sitting around it, telling dumb stories, trying to scare each other. The usual. But then the forest went still. No crickets. No wind. Derek had just said something. I don't even remember what. I was laughing. And then we heard it. A cry. It sounded like a woman screaming from the trees. But something was wrong. The scream was too long. It didn't stop to breathe. Just one endless wail. Noah stood up. Did you hear that? Yeah, I said. Derek nodded slowly, his face pale. He said something I'll never forget. That's not a person. We grabbed our flashlights and scanned. The tree line. Nothing. The scream had stopped. Then we heard footsteps. Heavy ones. Just past the light. I called out. Hello? No answer. But we heard it again. A perfect copy of my voice. Hello? We froze. Noah whispered. That's not possible. I shined my light into the woods, hands shaking. I saw something move. Fast. Low to the ground. Too fast. The rest of the night, we stayed awake. Watching. Listening. Nothing else happened. At least not until the next day. We packed up early and kept moving, but the feeling of being watched never left. I kept catching movement out of the corner of my eye. Shapes slipping between the trees. Too big to be deer. Too quiet to be human. Derek was acting strange. He kept falling behind, talking to himself. At one point, I heard him whispering. She said she's hungry. I asked him what he meant. He just looked at me with wide eyes and said, she's following us. That night, the smell came back. It was stronger now, like something had died nearby. We moved camp higher up the ridge, built a bigger fire, tried to act normal. Then Noah screamed. We turned. He was staring at something just outside the firelight. I raised my light and saw it. It stood on two legs. Tall, gaunt, pale skin stretched thin over bones. No hair, no clothes, just long limbs and black eyes. Its mouth hung open, way too wide. Then it ducked down like an animal and ran on all fours into the dark. We packed up immediately. No sleep, no rest. We started hiking back toward the trailhead. That's when we realized we were lost. The GPS kept glitching. The compass spun in circles. Every direction looked the same. And worse, the trees were changing. Some had deep claw marks in the bark. Others were missing entire chunks, like something had bitten them. We hiked all day. No trail, no sun. The fog rolled in before sunset. We found a clearing and made a fire. Derek hadn't spoken in hours. When night fell, we heard footsteps again, circling, then voices. Ours, repeating things we'd said earlier. Noah whispered, it's copying us. I nodded, too scared to speak. Then we heard Derek's voice. From the woods. Help me. He was sitting right next to us. We looked at him. He was pale, sweating. He looked sick. Help me. The voice said again. Noah stood up. That's not him. The Derek next to us looked up and smiled. His eyes were all wrong, black and empty. He opened his mouth and made a clicking sound. Bone against bone. Then he lunged at Noah. I tackled him. Or it. Whatever it was. It didn't feel human. It was too strong. Its skin was cold. Noah grabbed the hatchet and swung. It stopped moving. But then we heard it. Footsteps. More of them. Dozens. Surrounding us. We ran. Noah and I didn't stop until we couldn't breathe. We left the thing that wore Derek's face behind. Somehow, we found the old fire road. Stumbled into a ranger station just after sunrise. They called for search and rescue. They never found Derek. We didn't tell them what we saw. They wouldn't believe us. But that was not the end. Noah started acting strange a week later. Said he kept seeing Derek outside his window. Said he heard clicking in the walls. One night, he disappeared. No forced entry. No signs of struggle. Just gone. They found claw marks on the outside of his house. I've moved 3 times since then. Changed my number. Deleted my social media. But I still see it. In the trees. On foggy nights. Sometimes I hear Derek's voice. Help me. Sometimes it's my own voice. Calling me back to the ridge. I don't know how it found me. But I think it never stopped watching. And I think it's hungry again. I grew up in Arizona. Dry land. Endless skies. Red rock and secrets buried in the dust. My name is Luke Reyes, and I used to be a wildlife biologist for the state. I spent more time in the desert than in my own bed. You'd think after 15 years out here, I'd know what to be. Afraid of rattlesnakes, flash floods, maybe the occasional mountain lion. I was wrong. This happened 3 years ago, and I've barely spoken of it. The few people I tried to tell just looked at me like I was broken. And maybe I am. It started with a report. Livestock going missing on a remote ranch near the edge of the Navajo Nation. Not just missing, mutilated, bones crushed, skinned clean, no tracks, no blood trail. I took the call out of routine. I'd handled plenty of predator cases. Coyote packs, wild dogs. I drove out early one morning, just after sunrise. The land out there is ancient, silent. It's not like the rest of Arizona. Something about the soil feels heavier, like it remembers. The ranch was owned by a man named Eli Begay. He was older, quiet, polite in that way that said he didn't trust easily. He met me at the gate with his hat pulled low and a shotgun across his back. I'm not here to make trouble, I told him, just trying to help. Eli didn't say much. He just led me to the corral where it had happened. The smell hit me first. Rotting copper, the kind of stench that clings to your clothes. What I saw stopped me cold. 2 goats, torn open from throat to belly. Their skin gone like it had been peeled off with surgical precision. Bones cracked in strange ways. I crouched, looking for tracks. Nothing. Just the churned up dirt of the pen. Then I noticed the fence. Something had climbed over it. Not broken through, but climbed. Long, deep scratches in the wood. Higher than any coyote could reach. Eli watched me from a distance. I asked if he'd seen anything. Just shadows, he said. And sometimes, noises that don't belong out here. He wouldn't elaborate. Just said it wasn't the first time, and that I should leave before dark. I stayed. I set up a trail cam, checked the perimeter, and made camp near the pen. Around sunset, the wind picked up, sharp and dry. It carried whispers. I thought it was just the creak of the gate, the rustle of dry grass. But then I heard my name. Clear, cold, carried across the field like someone standing 20 feet away. Luke. I stood, flashlight in hand, scanning the dark. Nothing, just the wide stretch of desert and dying light. Then I heard it again. Luke. But this time it sounded wrong, like it came from inside my own mouth. I backed up slowly, heart pounding, trying to laugh it off. Must have been the wind. Too much time alone in the wild. I turned off the light and tried to sleep. Around midnight, the goats started screaming. I bolted upright, grabbed my flashlight, and ran to the pen. The noise stopped before I even got there. What I found chilled me to the bone. Another goat, this one freshly dead. Its body twisted like it had fallen from a great height. Again, no tracks, no sign of struggle. But this time, I saw something in the dirt. A single footprint. Not a paw, not a boot. A bare foot, human-shaped, but elongated. The toes were too long, the arch too deep, like something trying to imitate a person and failing. I woke Eli. He didn't seem surprised, just looked at the print and muttered, "It's getting bolder." I asked him what he meant. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Skinwalker." I don't know what I expected. Maybe an old superstition. But his voice didn't shake. I tried to reason it out. Some psycho, maybe. A drifter. A sick person doing this. Eli shook his head. They don't walk like men. They wear skin like a mask. They come when you speak of them. They know when you watch. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I checked the trail cam. The footage froze at 2:17 a.m. Just a flicker of static. Then a single frame. A face. Low to the ground. Crawling on all fours. Its eyes glowed white in the infrared. The mouth was open. Too wide. Full of yellow teeth. The skin was torn and wrong, like something stretched tight over bone. I packed my gear. I told Eli I'd file a report. That I'd notify the authorities. He just nodded. "They won't find it," he said. They never do. I left the ranch behind me and drove until I was back in cell range. I tried to explain what I saw. The agency didn't care. No evidence, they said. Probably a mountain lion. Move on. So I did. For a while. But it followed me. That night, back at my apartment in Flagstaff, I heard it again. Luke. Only this time, it came from inside my closet. I stood there frozen, staring at the closed door. I hadn't slept in 20 hours, but I wasn't dreaming. I opened the door slowly. Empty, but the smell was back. Rot, meat, dust. I moved out a week later, but it kept finding me. Every town I went to, every job I took, I'd hear it. In vents, behind walls. My name, whispered in that voice that didn't sound quite human. I started seeing shadows in my windows. Shapes that didn't move right. Crawling, grinning, watching. One night, I stayed with a friend out in Prescott. Thought maybe if I wasn't alone, it would stop. We were drinking on the porch when we heard it. Luke, my friend, looked at me, confused. Did you hear that? Yeah. We scanned the woods, but saw nothing. Then we heard a second voice. His voice, coming from the trees. Help me. He was standing right next to me. We went inside, locked the doors, stayed up until sunrise. That morning, I found claw marks on the window frame. 4 long gouges, deep into the wood. After that, my friend stopped talking to me. Can't blame him. I started documenting it. Voice recordings, trail cams, notes. One night, I played back an audio clip from my bedroom. I'd left the recorder running all night. At 3:03 a.m., I heard breathing. Not mine. Then a voice. So close it made my skin crawl. Luke, you saw me. Then the sound of something moving, slithering, crawling. I turned it off and burned the tape. I don't know how to fight this thing. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't stop. It wears faces. It mimics voices. But it's not human. Not even close. The last straw came 2 months ago. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The voice on the other end was calm. Familiar. It was me. My voice. Asking myself to come outside. I didn't. Instead, I locked myself in the bathroom and waited. For hours. The lights flickered. The air turned cold. I heard footsteps just outside the door. And then, scratching. Faint. Slow. Rhythmic. When I finally opened the door at sunrise, nothing was there. But every mirror in the house was cracked. And in each one, just faint enough to question my sanity, was a reflection that didn't match me. It smiled. And blinked. Out of sync. I left Arizona the next day. No plan. Just packed a duffel bag and drove east. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't post anything online. I paid in cash. I stayed off the grid. But it still found me. I was in Oklahoma by the time it showed up again. Small motel off the highway. Middle of nowhere. I hadn't seen or heard anything for almost a week. And I started to think maybe I'd outrun it. Then came the knock. 3 taps. Slow. I sat up in bed. The clock read 2:17. Same time the trail cam froze back at Eli's ranch. The knock came again. I didn't move. Then I heard my voice. From outside the door. Luke. It was calm. Gentle. But too calm. Like someone trying to sound like me, without understanding emotion. Luke let me in. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. No one. But the shadow on the floor was wrong. Long arms. Legs bent the wrong way. Then the voice shifted. Help me. It sounded like my sister. Then my mom. Then Eli. Then me again. I grabbed my bag, kicked out the bathroom window, and ran. I didn't stop driving for 16 hours. That was 2 months ago. Since then, I've been staying in a cabin deep in the woods of West Virginia. No internet. No neighbors. Just trees and quiet. I thought maybe I could break the cycle. That maybe distance would help. But last night, I saw something in the trees. A shape. Tall. Thin. Its arms hung too low. It didn't move when the wind blew. Just stood there, watching. I closed all the blinds and sat in the dark with my shotgun across my lap. Around midnight, I heard it again. This time, it was louder. Luke. Luke opened the door. Luke, please. It used my voice. Then my father's. Then someone I didn't recognize at all. Low. Guttural. Animal. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I knew the rules by now. Don't answer. Don't speak its name. Don't let it in. Then something touched the door handle. Softly. Deliberately. The knob turned once. Then again. But the deadbolt held. The scratching came next. Slow. Dragging nails across wood. I stayed up all night. When the sun rose, it was gone. But outside, in the dirt near the porch, I found tracks. Bare feet. But the prints were wrong. The toes were split. The heel was deep, like something heavy had crouched there. And beside it, the word Luke was etched into the dirt. Over and over again. I wiped it away, burned sage, recited every protection ritual I could find. But I know it's not enough. This thing doesn't just haunt places. It haunts people. It learns. It imitates. It waits. Eli once told me that skinwalkers aren't just shapeshifters. They're cursed, corrupted, people who gave up their humanity for power. But I think what follows me now is older than that. Something darker. It wears the name Skinwalker because it fits. But it's more like a parasite. A predator that hunts with memory and mimicry. It becomes you. A week ago, I heard from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My ex Jess. She said she saw me in town. Said I looked strange. Off. Said I didn't speak. Just stared. I hadn't been in town. I asked her to describe what she saw. She said my eyes were black. My mouth kept moving even when I wasn't talking. And that when I turned away, my arms bent backwards as I walked. I told her to leave. Change her number. Go somewhere far. She didn't believe me. 3 days later, she stopped answering texts. Last thing she sent was a voice message. Luke, help. Then static. Then breathing. I saved the file. But when I play it, I hear something behind her voice. My voice. Whispering her name. The next night, I woke up with blood under my fingernails. No cuts on my body. No memory of what happened. I checked the woods. Found nothing. But something found me. I left the cabin that morning. Hiked 10 miles to the ranger station. Told them I was being followed. Stalked. They found nothing. But I saw one of the rangers later that night, outside my cabin. Just standing. Staring. I called his name. He didn't answer. I waved. He tilted his head. Then he grinned. Too wide. I ran. By the time I reached the spot he'd been standing, he was gone. The next day, I asked the station about that ranger. They said no one by that name worked there. That the man I described had died 2 years ago. I'm writing all this down now because I don't know how much longer I'll be myself. Sometimes I hear my own voice whispering when I'm alone. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see something behind my eyes. Watching. Waiting. I don't think it wants to kill me. I think it wants to wear me. To step into my life. My skin. My memories. I think it wants to become me so no one notices when I'm gone. So no one questions when I speak with a different cadence. Or smile too wide. Or when I start showing up at places I don't belong. If you're reading this, and you've seen me lately, ask yourself one thing. Did I speak? Did I look you in the eye? Or did I just grin and watch you too long? Because if I did, that's not me. It's learning you now. It knows your name, and it's hungry. I took a job as a fire lookout last fall. My name's Daniel. I'm 27. No wife. No kids. Just me and a need to disappear for a while. So when the Forest Service offered me a position in a remote tower in southern Utah, no cell service, no people, I said yes without thinking. I wanted quiet. What I got was something else. The tower was old, but sturdy, 30 feet up, with a full view of the surrounding pine forest. One winding dirt road led in. Nobody came up without calling first. I had radios, backup batteries, maps, and enough supplies to last 3 months. My only job was to watch. That was the easy part. The first 2 weeks were peaceful. Cold, quiet nights. Deer moving through the brush. Occasionally, I'd hear coyotes yipping down in the valley. But on the 14th night, everything changed. It was just after 2 a.m. I'd woken up suddenly. Not to a sound, but the lack of one. The forest had gone silent. No wind. No insects. No night birds. Just thick, pressing silence. I walked to the window. Looked out across the treetops. The moon was bright. I should have been able to see everything. But something was wrong. The shadows were deeper than they should have been. Like the trees were leaning in. Hiding something. Then I saw it. A shape. Far down the access trail. It stood just at the edge of the clearing. Tall. Too tall. Thin arms. A head that tilted unnaturally to one side. I grabbed the binoculars. What I saw made me stumble back. It was a person. Or pretending to be one. But its arms were too long. Its skin was pale like dried meat. The mouth hung open, way too wide. And its eyes. No, not eyes. Just black pits. It stared right at me. I didn't blink. I couldn't. Then it moved. One step into the clearing. Then another. It didn't walk like a person. More like it was being pulled forward by invisible strings. I reached for the radio. Called the ranger station. No answer. Static. I tried again. More static. Then a whisper, faint but clear. Daniel, my name, in my own voice. I dropped the radio. When I looked back through the window, the thing was gone. I spent the rest of the night with a loaded rifle across my lap, eyes on the woods. Morning came, and with it, birdsong, wind, the usual sounds of the forest. But I didn't feel safe. I tried telling myself I'd imagined it, that maybe I'd fallen asleep and dreamed the whole thing. But I found prints in the dirt below the tower. Not boot prints, bare feet, long, narrow, with claws at the tips. And they stopped at the base of the ladder. That night, I stayed awake, watching, waiting. At 3:12 a.m., the silence came again. The forest fell still, and the smell hit me. Rotten meat. Thick, choking. Then the radio crackled to life. But it wasn't a ranger. It was my voice, screaming. The same scream, looping again and again. Then silence. I shut the radio off, and that's when the knocking started. 3 slow taps against the tower door. I didn't move. It knocked again. Then I heard footsteps. On the stairs. Coming up. I aimed the rifle at the door. My hands were shaking. The footsteps stopped. Then came the whisper. Let me in. Still my voice. But it didn't sound right. It stretched the words too long. The rhythm was off. Let me in. I stepped back. The doorknob turned. I had locked it. I knew I had. But it still turned. Like the thing on the other side didn't care. Then the door began to bulge. Not break. Bulge. Like something was pushing through without force. I fired. The sound echoed like thunder. Whatever was outside stopped. Silence again. Then the smell faded. And the woods came alive once more. In the morning, I found scratches on the metal door. Deep. Like something had carved them with bone. One word. Daniel. That was when I knew this thing wasn't just wandering. It was hunting. It knew my name. My voice. It wanted in. I tried to call for a chopper. Emergency evac. But all the radios were dead. Batteries drained. Even the backup generator failed. I packed my gear and started down the mountain. I didn't care if I had to walk for days. I just wanted to get away. But the trail had changed. Trees bent where they shouldn't. Rocks I didn't recognize. I walked for 6 hours and ended up back at the tower. Like the forest folded around me. Like it wouldn't let me leave. That night, I boarded the trapdoor shut. Set flares. Extra ammo. At midnight, I heard movement on the roof. Not footsteps. Crawling. Something skittering. Fast. And then it laughed. My laugh. I covered my ears. Then it started talking. Voices from my life. My mother. My old girlfriend. My boss. One after another. All wrong. All hollow. I screamed for it to stop. It did. Then it said one thing. One sentence. You already let me in. I didn't sleep that night. How could I after what it said? You already let me in. I paced the tower rifle in hand, every shadow a threat. Every creak of the wood made my skin crawl. I kept the trapdoor nailed shut, windows sealed, flares ready. But around 3 a.m. I noticed something strange. The smell was back, rotting meat, thick and hot. And the tower felt smaller. I don't know how else to explain it. The walls were the same. The space the same, but it felt tighter. Like the thing outside wasn't outside anymore. Like it was under the floorboards and the walls watching. I opened a can of beans, ate 2 bites and gagged. The beans were moving. Tiny white worms writhing between the chunks. I threw the can out the window. Then I looked down. It was there, standing at the bottom of the tower, staring up at me. But it wasn't one thing anymore. It had pieces of others. A deer's antlers, a man's face stretched 2 thin, long arms, with hands that had too many fingers. It looked like someone had built a creature out of nightmares and mistakes. Then it opened its mouth, and something climbed out. A second one, smaller, faster. It sprinted into the woods, and I knew somehow it was coming up behind me. I turned just as the trapdoor exploded upward, with shattered nails tore through my leg. The thing burst through. No eyes, just a black, pulsing face, a mouth that clicked like bones snapping. I fired 3 shots. It screeched, not in pain and anger. Then it vanished, like it fell through the floor. My leg was bleeding bad. I wrapped it with my shirt, loaded more rounds, and stayed in the corner until sunrise. The forest looked normal in the daylight, birds, wind, trees. But I knew better. Something had changed. I wasn't alone in the woods anymore. I never had been. I left the tower that morning limping, bleeding. No trail, no map, just instinct. I walked until dark, set up camp in a clearing. Didn't start a fire. Didn't sleep. And that's when I saw her. A woman, naked, walking between the trees. Hair down to her knees, pale skin, eyes black as oil. She stopped and looked at me. Then her body broke. Bent backward joints snapped, her head turned all the way around. She ran at me, on all fours. I fired, missed. She tackled me to the ground. But she was too light like a shell. I shoved her off. She collapsed into leaves like an empty sack of skin. And I heard them laughing in the woods. Dozens of them. The woman's face lifted. It wasn't a face anymore, just a smile stretched across bone. I ran. Didn't stop for hours. I found a cave, dark, damp, hidden. I crawled and set up flares. And I waited. All night I heard them outside, calling my name, begging, pleading, voices from my life. My brother, my old friend, my childhood dog. All of them telling me to come out. I didn't move. Not until morning. When I finally crawled out, the woods were dead silent. I hiked until I found a trail, then a road. 2 days later, I stumbled into a ranger station. They asked where I'd been, what happened. I lied, said I'd fallen, got lost. They airlifted me out. I never went back. But the thing followed. A week later, I got a phone call. No number. When I answered, it was my voice, saying I let it in, saying it was still hungry. Every few nights, I see something in the tree line behind my apartment. Tall, still watching. The birds don't sing when it's there. The wind dies. And sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I smell it. Rotten meat. And I hear voices. Not calling to me, but from me. Repeating the things I've said. Begging to be let back in. But I never will. Because I know now. There's more than one. And they wear your skin like a suit. And they never stop hunting. Especially when you're alone.